Hi, I'm Jason Gore for ThatShelf.com, and we're here to look at the new heart of my home theater, the Anthem AVM 90.
Big shelf.
So the AVM 90 has been out for a couple of years. Its development has been sort of prior to COVID. Its development got wrapped up in the whole COVID lockdown thing. There was an entire different replacement for the very celebrated AVM 70 that was supposed to come out. And in the process, chip shortages and all those different elements that happened during that time resulted in an actual fundamental redesign that we resulted in this particular model. This has been out now a couple of years. Things have sort of stabilized. And the question, why now? Well, I was at the Toronto Audio Show. I got a chance to actually see it in person. But I've sort of been waiting with my existing setup to actually make the jump from what I already had. I had an 8802A. So I went from an Integra 9.8, was my first separates, so separate amplification and processor, with the idea being that when things actually change, when things were augmented, you keep your amplification and just change the processor, sort of changing the brain, but all the bronze sort of stick alone. I have a couple monoblock Class A's that are running my B&W 802s, and then I have a Theta amp, which is running a 5-channel setup, and then I actually have an old Arcam 4-channel, which is running my Atmos setup. More on that to come in a future video with my upgrade there. I went from the Integra 9.8 to the original 8001. I went to an 8001A. I then went through an 8002 and then a 2A, incremental upgrades. And I've stuck with the 8002. It's been more than sufficient to run my 7.1.4 setup, meaning 7 channels in the base layer, front, center, left, side surrounds, rear surrounds, and then 4 Atmos channels, and of course 1 subwoofer. And did everything that I needed to do in terms of DTS, Dolby Atmos, etc. There's a couple key things that were, not baked into the 8002 because it's a slightly older model. One, it has ARC, audio return channel, but it does not have the enhanced EARC, meaning certain signals could not come from my television back to my amplification over the HDMI cable. Very minor. And yeah, it's the Marantz system is a little bit long in the tooth. It's actual graphical user interface feels very much like something from the 80s, let alone something from this century. And but the sound has been spectacular. It's been the absolute cornerstone of what I'm doing on terms of a digital basis. I actually have a Class A, I guess it's a CP700, if I got that correctly, that does my analog through pass-through. And it'll be very interesting to see, and that was a significant upgrade for me. It'll be interesting to see whether or not this, which is a model, engineered here in Canada from Anthem, it's all part of the Paradigm Group, and with a bunch, from what I understand, a bunch of engineers that are actually connected with those that actually developed my Class A system. So hypothetically, the 2-channel performance on this will rival what I already have. Now, if this doesn't have XLR inputs, we'll get to that. So I'll probably keep my Class A, because why not have semi-balanced, I guess, or balanced inputs into my Class A. And the bypass, it just allows me, in some ways, just to A-B out of my phono. But that is complication for another time. So, what changed? Well, a couple of things. One, actually, it was, weirdly, the push to look at this came when Marantz did their big upgrade. Their AV10 looks exceptional. I also had a chance to actually see that. And I was pretty committed to that was going to be the upgrade that I was going to do. It's really amazing specs-wise, some remarkable capabilities, etc. It's pretty huge. The actual chassis is actually bigger than my 8802A. In my rack system, it's already sort of pushing at the limits of what I can do, and I have to pull it up from the wall. But a minor thing. Plus, I was already going to lose a bunch of stuff that I actually use in my 8002. I was coming to terms with that. I have a Laserdisc player with a, not inconsiderable Laserdisc collection. It's not like I watch them every day. But nonetheless, I have a Laserdisc setup, and for me to get analog in, well, all of the new processors sort of have dropped that. I think even the Trinov or whatever it is, like the $30,000 one, doesn't actually allow that. I need some sort of adapter. Anybody blowing that much money is just going to buy, a full scaler and then be done with it. I don't have that kind of money. This was a very, very, very much a stretch. Since I was already sort of like, checking off some of the things that I had, for historical purposes, I'm kind of annoyed. I actually use the front panel all the time, front panel HDMI, to plug my laptop in. I knew I was going to lose that on the AV10, so I started digging deeper to say, like, is this worth me doing an upgrade? And the real big upgrade is, for many of these, is to actually accommodate multiple subwoofers. I have one big ass 16-inch SVS subwoofer. Now, my room would absolutely benefit from me having multiple subs. This is a pain in the ass room. It's about 16 by 20-ish. Small room with, I'm already running 12 speakers in it. It's a bit ridiculous at the best of times. And the subwoofer is obviously gargantuan and completely overkill for a room this size. I would do absolutely much better with 2 or 4, frankly, 12-inch subwoofers. I'm just not in a position to do that. But one of the big things of the AV10 would allow me to actually do the newest version of Odyssey that comes with, or if I paid hundreds of dollars on top of the $10,000 or something like that Canadian that it would have cost me for the AV10, is I could use DTS-X. Now, on my current 8802, I don't use room correction at all. I know there's advantages to it in certain circumstances, but I just find it muddles the sound way too much on the older model that it's just not worth me having the headache. I'd rather deal with just like the quote-unquote normalcy of the sound and just deal with sort of speaker placement and certain things I've done. To my advantage, you can see I have lots of records. There's discs behind the camera that do a pretty good job of like doing that absorbing and deflection thing, the adflection, whatever it is, somewhere in between absorption and deflection to make, I think the room sounds very, very good. I'm quite pleased about the room. But again, room correction hasn't been a big priority for me. The AV10 looked like a possibility of actually doing that and going the DTS route, which I know from years of hearing about it, how extraordinary it is. And then I started thinking about this guy. Now, Anthem, I've been intrigued. I mean, I looked at some of the stuff, but it's like, what would draw me away from the Marantz label in order for me to look at something completely sort of outside? Well, first of all, I mean, the size of this is actually smaller, if not, so comparable, if not smaller than what I already have. So it'll fit in my rack a little bit easier. I mean, that's a minor thing. All the things that I was quote unquote losing by going any of the upgrades, the front panel, the lack of analog video inputs and stuff like that, is shared with here. Now, what this does have is 2 features which I really love. First of all, it comes with its own ARC, not audio return channel, but the Anthem room correction setup. It will come with a microphone, which we'll show in a moment. In other words, without any external lay, I don't have to pay more money in order to get in class leading, or at least class tying, room correction. There's all kinds of stuff we can tweak with a laptop. There'll be plenty of more discussion with that when I actually set it up. For now, we're just sort of doing an introduction to it. But the big thing, and the thing that I had no idea was how much I wanted until I sort of discovered it in other breakdowns, are virtual inputs. Now, I have a weird setup. I've talked about it a little bit on this channel, is that I'm trying to do too much with this room. If I had a bigger house, if I had bigger space, of course I would have a dedicated 2-channel system. I would have a dedicated home theater system. Heck, I'd have a dedicated quadraphonic system. But I have in this room, my mandate is to do 2-channel, is to do listening to music, which is strict 5.1, like no auxiliary speakers plugged in, or strict 4.0, quadraphonic, original quadraphonic elements, or a full Atmos setup. And what's nice about the what I have set up is I have an XLR switch box so that I take the side surround signal information and route it to the rear. What I have to do in my Marantz currently, because if I'm listening to, let's say, a DTS audio disc, which is multi-channel, often lossy, but still a multi-channel mix, DTS, if there are 7 speakers, will automatically put in signals to those rear speakers. The only way around that is for me to shut off the rear speakers. So I have to go into the menu, turn off the speakers, go. It's a pain. It's not the end of the world, but it's a pain. With only 7 inputs on the Marantz, I'm kind of also locked about which one each doing. So I have, let's say, an Oppo 203 or my Panasonic 9000, whatever I'm listening to different elements on. Things are very specific. Plus, I'm now running a hybrid in terms of visual presentation. I have, of course, my 77-inch OLED, but I now have the pull for it's right here. I now have my projector, which is a sort of semi-portable projector, my BenQ 4550i, with a screen that I have that I drop down. So sometimes I have a screen in front of my speakers, and so ideally, I don't think it's going to be a major difference based on how the screen is relatively thin and relatively transparent. It's literally a cloth with a black backing. But nonetheless, I will be able to do room correction for different modes. And that's where the virtual inputs happen. And so that I could have one of 30, I believe, inputs with different settings. So instead of having one with, let's just use it as an example, my Oppo 203, which will play UHD, which will play DVD, Blu-ray, SACD, TVD audio, etc. And I can set the output to either the TV or the projector. I can actually have these virtual inputs. So one will be Oppo, Full Atmos, room correction on television. I could then have Oppo 203, Full Atmos, full speaker layout, projector. Is there going to be a difference? We're going to test it. But I can also set Oppo 203 music mode and have it so that the maximum that I have is the 5.1 speakers. I make the XLR switch, and immediately just by hitting a different input, a virtual input, I'm using the same HDMI, same stuff. I turn off room correction for music. I'm keeping room correction on for movies, but for music, I'm going to try it off. We'll see how it actually behaves and go from there. And with these 30 inputs, I will be able to, switch back and forth between all of the myriad things that I have input. I can switch between Laserdisc and HD DVD and maybe share an HDMI there and have a separate HDMI switch, but have the controls change, all of these elements. I love this idea. It's such a genius idea. I understand that many other, certain other high-end processors do something similar, but this was a revelation to me that I had just slipped, just completely, because I wasn't in the market for one. And that feature alone really is sort of what brought me towards this. Plus, I could have done this with the lower-end model. Sorry, I believe I said that I went from a 70 to the 90. I'm getting confused in terms of product numbers. It was the 60 was the top end of this. The 70 sort of came out and had different elements when this, it gets very complicated, and I've learned all this sort of laterally because I'm relatively new to the Anthem line. But the 70 is still available with the same HDMI boards in here, which allows all the stuff that I'm not using it right now. Video game inputs like 8K stuff, like crazy stuff that I don't actually have, 4K with super high frame rates, etc. Above 60. Nonetheless, the 70 and the 90 of this are very similar. They look the same. The fundamental difference is the chips inside, and this has the ability to do 4 subwoofers. Now, as I mentioned, I'm not doing 4 subwoofers. I'm not going to do 4 subwoofers anytime soon. This is 100% overkill. But this, which is essentially double the price of a 70, this gives me, I believe, a significant audio jump of what I already had with the Marantz. I thought the 70 would be at best a lateral move. Yes, I could have my my virtual inputs and setups like that, not quite as robust as this, but nonetheless I could do that setup. But this gives me, I hope, I believe, my next decade in terms of home theater. This may be my end product. We will see. This does basically what I wanted to do on every front. It is true that at the moment there's certain things that were promised with this that are no longer sort of either implemented or will be implemented. One is DTS-X Pro. It's taken me a long time to get my head around what that would be. That's essentially me going beyond 7.1.4 to, let's say, 7.1.6 or 9.1.6. That's where you get auxiliary sort of front channels. Front height. I mean, it gets complicated, but the deal is that this will not do that. But I can always use the Atmos up mixer. In other words, I can have a DTS signal that's 7.1.4 and then put Atmos on top to actually expand if I was to go to that many speakers. Now, that was a real thing that I was considering doing until I got my new SVS Ultras that are doing a beautiful job of not only filling out my Atmos space, but creating a virtual center between the two speakers in a way that they were not before. That will be covered in my full review of the SVSs. But my sort of itch to have 6 Atmos channels in a room this big with 1 row of seating with a primary room means that I don't necessarily need to go to. Which means I have something with crazy horsepower doing a bunch of stuff I don't necessarily need it to do. But the stuff I do need it to do, I think it's going to do extraordinarily well. And that's why I actually chose the AVM 90. That's why I want to take a look at it today. So, we talked about some of the specs. Let's read off a few more. Excuse me. All new electronics program platform with Anthem room corrections. We talked about up to 19 channels, 18 by 2.1, the HDCP 2.3, supporting 8K 60 Hz or 4K 120. Now, again, I'm not going to do it 4K and 120 anytime soon. Networking platform with web-based setup and over-the-air updates. Love that. Next generation DSP platform with 64-bit floating point data processing. Great, sounds good. Program agnostic streaming. Again, my Marantz was always flaky for streaming. A pain in the ass. This actually has Google Chromecast, which is actually going to be fun. I'm actually going to be able to synchronize it with the rest of my Chromecast thing as part of Google Home. It has Bluetooth 4.2, which I'm unlikely to do. But it does have Spotify Connect, which is, a small thing. My Marantz has Spotify Connect, but it is flaky as hell. I'm hoping this does a much better job. And the whole Rune layout. I'm not Rune yet. It's not a big deal for me that this is not. But Rune is one of the things that they promised, and it's coming soon. I can use different elements like Chromecast to actually incorporate it into Rune, but for me, that's not a feature I'm not worrying about. And it's a classic example that you do not buy something for a promised feature. You wait, which is one reason I waited 2 years, is to make sure this thing was stable. Because I had heard horror stories about this. I had heard horror stories about Anthems just not behaving, HDMI issues, etc. Everything, even my Marantz, again, I occasionally got to pull the plug and put the plug back in. It's fine. You just do the old reboot. But I was slightly concerned. It's definitely a reason that I don't look for things that are crazy esoteric. This is at least a known brand with good engineering staff and good support, and that's very exciting for me. So what do you get? Inside here, you get reference quality 32-bit, 768 kilohertz DACs. Yeah, so the DACs in here are what really set it apart from other elements. Flagship electronics problem, ultra low noise linear regulators, sure. There's a Torrid power supply just to make me feel better. High layer count circuit boards, great. Isolating ground planes, awesome. Superior 0.1 high precision resistor, so I guess they've gone through and made the resistors really good. And then again, the 4 independent subs does streaming, does all that elements. And it has all of that stuff with the room correction. I'm seeing if there's anything here else that I got. There we go. The actual, right. So tech specs are just ridiculous. And if you go through the people that have gone through the effort of actually testing it, this, and frankly the AV10, but this is like absolutely near the top of anything ever tested. So the fact that I'm getting a processor, within my budget, which is a crazy amount that I'm extending to do this, but it's not 10 times this, or at least 8 times this in terms of cost. This sort of is reasonable. I know this hobby is crazy that way. It's not a fully balanced system. There's a whole big discussion about what counts as real balance versus not real balanced. But it at least allows me to do the balanced outputs. As I said, no balanced input. It's not a big deal because I will be probably, as I said, running my Class A for that process. But we're going to dig in, see what's inside, and then I'm going to have to spend a while setting it up. I will come back, but for now, I just thought you guys could, live vicariously as I crack this thing open. This obviously I purchased, after lots of help, and a big shout out to the wonderful people, some wonderful people, but honestly, I'm being sarcastic, but I shouldn't be, at things like AVS Forum. I've learned so much from complete strangers over there. There are absolute douchebags that hang on forums like that, but there's some that just take the time to patiently answer a question that's been answered over and over again. I do take the effort to try to read as many pages as you can, but when you have like 1,300 pages on something like this, certainly looking for the complaints, understanding what the limitations and possibilities are with this unit and taking that in. There's some people that want to start fight, but there's others that just want to encourage people to do that. And hopefully that's what you're getting. I mean, you're this far into this video. That's hopefully what you're getting from this channel, is whatever's going on, you're just getting a sense of sometimes this hobby, activity, in a weird way, my profession, is sort of taking. This is obviously going to be part of my reference system for future reviews. So that's where it's at. So yeah, inside the box, as we take this open, let's do this. And we have, it's very straightforward. We have, and I'll just pull this stuff out. It's exactly what one would expect inside. I'll pull this out. This is the big thing. And then, yeah, oh my God, it really is so much tinier than the Marantz, which again is going to be nice. I'm going to pull this out and then I'll take the box and put it elsewhere. There is my AVM. There's my unit here. So first things first, we're going to look at this guy. This is, as I said, it actually comes with 4 use of the ARC. Again, 2 ARCs. It's so confusing. We need different names. Can't even get the styrofoam off. This is not the audio return channel. This is the Anthem room correction kit. Transform the sound in any shape, as it says. Look, and we got a silver microphone. So this will be a fully calibrated microphone, USB mic, that's going to go in my system and allow me to use the software directly to do it. I don't have to buy hundreds of dollar kit. I don't have to worry about other software. This is all included. I love that. It's great that Marantz actually allows you to upgrade to Dirac, but even you're spending $10,000 and getting a little crappy microphone like I had with my 8802, which always felt that, I mean, look, the microphone can be good and look crappy. This is a whole nother story. But even the cable just seemed so flimsy. And I actually, on my Marantz, on my 8802, I had to replace the microphone. It stopped working after a while and was going completely bananas. I had to pay to actually have another one sent. So I have my second microphone for my Marantz. This seems a little bit more sturdy. So inside the box, we have here, we have, you know, a USB-C to USB-A lead. We have this, which is the microphone itself, sort of tucked in. But the big thing we have, weirdly, is a tripod, or at least a mount. You know, it even includes this. Now, am I paying for this when I actually pay for the whole thing? Yeah, sure. But rightly or wrongly, this is something that I'm 100% going to use for more. I will probably get more use out of this, certainly more use than I will out of the cardboard version that the Marantz came with. So yeah, nice, solid looking. I mean, it's ridiculous. Here we are opening up a tripod before we even look at the preprocessor itself. But this is what we've got. As I carefully open up the bag, it's just really good quality. I don't mean to sound surprised. Throw the box down there. All right, there we go. Look, it's a tripod. All right, simple enough. Open it up. And this will allow me, simply enough, to either put a microphone on here or actually use this boom to actually do it. It's great. Super, like right from the outset, I haven't even looked at anything. This feels sturdy and professional. I know it's crazy. I know that this is not the thing that I need to be focusing on. I just think it's a nice touch. This can't be costing them so much in the grand scheme of things when you actually have something of this caliber included. Don't make me fight to have to get something else. I mean, it's one thing what power cables they include when expecting people to get third party. It's a whole nother conversation. And the microphone itself in this nice little soft bag. Yeah, good, solid, billeted aluminum, ARC branded, and there's a little dot now, this side, that actually shows which way it is for music listening. So this looks, you know, USB-C lead on here. This absolutely looks like the kind of mic you'd expect for a system like this to actually do the trick for doing it. So yeah, right out of the bat, I am extremely, extremely pleased with what we're seeing. Now, the same cannot necessarily be said for the remote. So this is, you know, we get our instruction manual. It's very nice. The remote is, I think, at best, common, normal, fine. Yes, the vast majority of people will actually go ahead and replace this with, you know, most people are buying this at restaurants and the people setting this up for them, or whatever crazy high-end thing I've never even heard of these days that do home automation. I'm old school using my Nevo. Now, I mean, here it is right out of the package, and it's actually sticky. It's actually kind of gross. as if it's been sitting for a while. I mean, it's got that thing. No, I'm seeing if there's a plastic on top of here to actually peel this off. Oh, there might be, or it's just gross. Yeah, see, there's plastic on the top here, but I don't think there's actually plastic on this here. No, it's just there's a layer of nonsense on here. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is riveting television. Yeah, it's just this rubberized thing on the front. Unpleasant. But, you know, it has lots of buttons. It has all the things that you want it to have. And it is true that I'm going to go ahead and program this into my Nevo. It's fine. It's certainly not extraordinary. It takes 2 AAAs. Great. Yeah, what is this sort of weird squishy crap on the front? I mean, I guess that's what it's supposed to be, or maybe it's just been sitting there long enough that it's actually turned sticky. I have no idea what's going on, because the buttons themselves actually feel quite nice. It's obviously going to be backlit, and it has certain zone elements, etc. But yeah, I think that this is way less premium, you know, just in terms of look and feel, for the kind of model that we're having. We're having a nice little pile of nonsense over here. Comes, of course, with instructions, the batteries, 2 antenna. The antenna will be used for me, I'm not going to use Wi-Fi. Of course, I'm going to wire it over Ethernet. But I believe these will also be for transmission of signals such as Bluetooth. Now, I don't know how that works. I always thought Bluetooth was a different antenna frequency, but I'm not an RF engineer. Somebody else can correct me in the comments about all that. And then we have, as is typical these days, you don't get a full manual. All that stuff's online. But you do have here, yeah, using the remote control, letting me know, and where the XLR, how to plug in an XLR cable. So the very straightforward stuff. Obviously saving money on printing, saving paper, but you could include like a really nice booklet with this that actually tells a story, that maybe admits about some of the engineering challenges of this, about what they overcame. That would have been nice. A little bit of narrative goes a long way. Hell, when I buy Lego sets, they even have a little bit of that about what's going on. So, you know, that's, on the one hand, you have this, like, the DryPod screams professional audio equipment, and the remote control screams, you're not going to use this anyway, so we don't give a damn, so we're just going to give you this piece of crap plastic thing. That's where we're at. And weirdly, that was always this sort of hybrid. I think, I mean, and we'll actually take this open. I think if you look at the direct competition, which is again the AV10 from Marantz, I think it's a better looking unit. I think it's gorgeous, and I saw one in person. The copper screws, all the stuff that they do with Marantz to actually make their flagships look amazing. The new design aesthetic, I think, is gorgeous. Aesthetically, I much prefer that. This is a minimalist thing. It'll do fine. It looks the same as the other. I mean, it's nice. Look, I drive a GTI, which sort of looks like a Golf. I have no problem with things that look the same, but under the hood, they're a lot more powerful. That's sort of the way I go. But yeah, this looks like, as expected, a box. It's a black box. It's a black box that, when you plug in, will have a nice display. It'll be very visible from far away. But what else do I need this to be? I mean, I could rack mount this. I could do whatever with this, but this is nothing more, nothing less than a very straightforward black box. Simple face, simple design, 1 volume knob, no inputs that I want on the front, no pull down plate, nothing that looks like, we have this so my cat doesn't eat it, silica gel. I will take off the protector. I guess I can do that now. We'll do that. I should do the Tecmone pornography sound, I guess, as we do this. Oh yeah, or whatever his sound is. As I take this off. There we go. Now it'll look more shinier. And that's it. Totally straightforward. Now, the logo's on the front. Dolby Atmos, excellent. We have Dolby Vision, so full pass-through on that stuff. IMAX Enhanced, great. I mean, the whole thing about IMAX Enhanced is completely ridiculous. There's only a few titles, some on Disney Plus, I think 2 Blu-ray. are UHD combos that actually do it. I just love that I have IMAX at home. It's completely not real IMAX. It's a lie of a lie IMAX, but I like that it'll just say IMAX on my system. It's dumb, but just work with me. DTS-X HD, so this goes the full 7.1.4 DTS. Again, not DTS Pro. That's another of the logos. And what else we got down here? HDMI, oh, that's very super helpful. And the ARC that we talked about. And headphone jack on the front. And actually, I have a feeling I'm going to use the headphone jack on this a bunch. I'm actually quite excited about that because of how this is actually set up. I believe this will obviate the need for me to have ever a headphone amplifier between my focals, my Sennheisers, and other elements. I think that I might actually use more headphone stuff for this. And one thing I'll probably do, again, because my phono preamp has XLR outs, those will go to Class A, which does not have a headphone jack. And I'll run RCAs into this and simply put one of my gazillion virtual inputs to be phono, and then put that in for a headphone. Just have that work. Great. Super happy. Now, around the side, we got nothing. A bunch of venting. Very straightforward. And on the back, so there's all our guys, right? So look at them all. Completely ridiculous as usual. That being said, my existing Marantz, because it has all the analog video, this looks relatively tame. This looks like almost usable. All of these totally assignable analog jacks. XLR for my output, control stuff. We have one of the big things that they did finally on this model is to actually have 3 separate trigger points. I have optical in and coax in. That'll actually be used for my Laserdisc. We have a moving magnet phono input. Never going to be used on this. I have separate amplification. That's where the antennas plug in. My HDMIs, and then to a zone out for HDMI on this, and then these the sort of my 2 main HDMI outs. One will go to my projector, and one will go to my TV, which is set for ERC. So now what I got to do is plug this guy in, which is going to be one thing. Did it even come with a power cable? I think it might not have even come with a power cable, which is hilarious. I think that's how little they assume that you're actually going to use their power cable. Oh, no, here's a power cable. I put it in the ground. So, yeah, straight, normal, IC power cable. You know, it's decent, thick enough. And just for fun, I'm going to plug this in and light it up. I just plugged this in, and what's interesting is it's a non-grounded IEC. It's actually 2-port, and if I look around the back, I mean, it's got those 2 prongs, which will work for a 3-prong, but it only requires 2-prong, which means this itself does not use a grounded plug. As I plug this in and do its thing, sort of fits in there a little tight, and then I turn it around, and then I hit power. You can see it lighting up there. So there we are. So we have our screen. We have the first time it's lit up. I have a lot of setup to do, a lot more to do. Looking at the power there, look, you know, pretty bright display, certainly bright enough. With the glare here with what I'm actually recording, it'll be fine. I can obviously change the darkness or dimness, as it were. But I have so much that I'll be able to do this, and I'll be able to do it over IP. I'll be able to sit on my couch and over the internet, over my intranet, my local network. I'll be able to completely configure this the way I want, be able to tweak it, totally make this my own. And it's that level of flexibility that I'm really excited about, that I'm getting absolutely top-notch audio quality and incredible flexibility all in one unit. Made me pull the trigger on this, the AVM 9D from Anthem. For thatshelf.com, I'm Jason Gorber. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, follow us on social media, follow this channel so you can see what happens when I actually set this thing up and actually plug the thing in for real this time. I'm going to unplug it because the cable's in my way. Please go to thatshelf.com, support our writers, it really help a lot, and we will see you in the next video. All the best. Take care.